Hi guys, and welcome back to the Shadow Work Mastermind. This is Lo, and today we're going to be talking about cleaning your feet between levels. And this is going to be roughly the end of this full concept of the spider web concept of how the universe works. Now, as you travel on your levels, okay, you are going to have things that kind of cake up on you. And this tends to be resentment, fear, and things to protect you. Now, I put all of these into one category because they all stem from similar things, which is basically negative experiences. And your ego is in charge of these experiences. Your ego takes on literally the brunt of any negative, any conflict, any negative people, any negative entities or energy. And it learns from it, and it learns, okay, I need to protect myself from this. And the way that I protected myself from this created this, which created this, which kept me safe. And so now every time that something triggers this chain reaction, I'm going to start the chain reaction. So now it's like, boom, okay, boom, and so what you have to do, and what we're going to learn in our first part of our shadow work lesson, as we get into the main content, is talking about how do we undo this chain reaction, okay? But the point here is to identify the trigger of the reaction and understand how not to go into the chain, how to sever the bond between the trigger and the chain reaction. So that way you can take this chain apart link by link as you heal the wound under it, okay? And then that way you're able to minimize this reaction and you're able to come forward to respond rather than react. So now we know the difference between levels. We know the difference between how to clean our feet, between people, and then situations, right? And then resentment and fear and negative energies and entities. Now, there's one more thing that I want to talk about when it comes to entities, okay? And this one is going to be hard to hear. Most people have attachments to negative entities. If you have any type of drug addiction, if you have any type of addiction period, if you have any type of overindulgence, things that put you at a disadvantage because you do them often, but you feel like you need them and then you can't stop, but you say that you can, that thing is the thing that you have an attachment in that place, right? So I'm going to give you guys a personal example because my life used to be shit and I had a lot of different attachments, and being someone who has always been able to see spirits, it used to freak me out because I would be able to see them, but I didn't know that they were attached to me, right? So one of the main reactions that I had was I was very much a nympho, and not like a joke, literally I had a sexual addiction. And so because I had sexual trauma, I would create situations where I could be in control of the situation and relive that trauma in order to help myself cope with the inner wound that I had and to kind of help me start to heal and twist those negative experiences and to alchemize them. But at the same time, I was addicted to the feeling of it, okay? And what it gave me as a result. So it went from being a way to heal to a way to cope. And through that coping, I would then use it as a crutch in my life, right? And so I had to learn how to, resist and have restraint, okay? But in that place, I had an attachment. I had an entity that would always just always whisper in my ear, like, oh, this, and look at that person and this, and I bet this person and this, and I bet if I get do, you know what I'm saying? And when you can't keep your mind straight, right? You can't think your own thoughts. Something else is embedding thoughts within you because you have this stipulation to something that you cannot control. You need to work on that through releasing this entity. So the easiest way that I can convey this to you is a 2-phase process, right? And to be honest with you, they happen almost at the same time, but the second side is the bulk of the second half of the work, okay? So the first thing that I'm going to tell you to do is to start mentally, okay? Mentally and emotionally, you have to start breaking little parts of it down. I suggest going to therapy because it does help, but I'm a person who started this process without therapy, so I'm going to give you this experience. But I did also go to therapy later on, which helped me kind of make it very continuous. When I first started, what I did was I just completely cut that thing out of my life entirely. Now, I know that's drastic, but for someone who has no control and no limitation to being able to have constraints, as you cut it out and you take that time, during the time span of cutting it out, you start to analyze your mental and emotional, because you start to have withdrawal. You start to have withdrawal. It doesn't matter what you're addicted to, you're going to have withdrawal. You start to realize when physically is an issue, you start to realize other things that are a part of this issue, like watching porn, like physically pleasuring yourself, like music that you listen to, like how you're feeding yourself to create this reality. And then you have to strip all of that away to understand, hey, this is no longer part of my reality and I no longer need this. And I need to learn how to change and shift that pillar of how I pleasure myself, right? And so what I did was I start to implement hobbies, okay? Implement hobbies. When I got that urge and I was like, oh my God, I would get this urge, and it's like the weirdest experience to like tell y'all how it felt, but it would like start in that area, in my private areas, and then it would move into my hands. And it would be like my hands are vibrating. They vibrate at the tips of my fingers into my palms, and they just rush through down all of my veins across my arm from hand to hand. And it would just move like this all day, like through my fingers and my arms, and it would just be like this itch I can't scratch. If y'all have ever seen the movie Black Snake Moans, like that shit was very realistic to the withdrawals that I felt. And I remember just being in that place and being like, okay, so how do I move myself from here to there? And the first thing that I had to really see was, why was I hurting so much? Why was I coping, right? And when I first came into it, I was like, well, this was done to me and this was done to me, and that triggered me. But then I thought, this issue started deeper, right? This issue started deeper because this issue became about because I was broke and I didn't have money to feed the previous addiction, which I had, which was eating. I was a huge food addict. I would just eat all of my emotions. I would just stuff myself with as much tasty dopamine hitting food as possible. And when I was in college, I didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't eat all the things that I would crave, that I would want right then and there every single day, hitting after hitting. And I would be in constant stress all day. I went to film school. So it's like, do this. And I was in quarterly school. So it was just like constant every single day, like doing things. And there was like no break. There was no rest, right? And so when I finally was able to just look at it, I was like, okay, well, I needed a way to cope. And I needed a way to cope that was quick, fast, and didn't make me sluggish, sleepy, or fat. Because I needed to have the momentum and the energy to do what I needed to do. And I realized at that time, what I was doing spiritually was seeking abundance of energy because I was underneath an oppressive regime. Okay? I realized this maybe, I want to say I was maybe like 6 months. I was 6 months sober, right? I was 6 months into this celibacy, and I was like, wow, wait. Like, I'm a victim of narcissistic abuse. I'm a victim of mental and physical and emotional abuse and sexual abuse at that. And I'm compressing all of this inside of me. All of those people, I have created a version of them in my mind talking to me every day, telling me who I can and can't be, what I can and can't do, what I can and can't have, how highly or lowly should I think about myself, right? And I've created this negative idea, this negative counsel of people in my mind, not only them outside of me, some of them were not present, they were just an experience that I created an idea around, and others of them were in my life every single day, or a continuous person in my life that I was seeing, and then I would just update the negative ideal in my mind, and I would just feel so oppressed all the time. I was like, wow, like I've been dealing with this for so long. What I started to do was every single person, and this had to do a lot with love. So I had to look at all of my past lovers, all of the people who sexually assaulted me, and I had to go through and I had to say, okay, I forgive you, and you can go, and you're dissolved, and you no longer are allowed in my mind. And I had to do that for every single person. It took months, okay? Because I had a lot of built up resentment. I had a lot of built up fear. I had a lot of built up anguish. I had a lot of built up subscriptions to negative frequencies, thought patterns, emotions, just everything, right? And then I realized, whoa, because I'm not feeding this trigger, I'm starting to indulge in other things. And I started to indulge in smoking. I started to indulge in drinking. So then I was like, okay, well, I need to cut these things out too, right? Because if I'm smoking and I'm drinking, then I'm not feeling my feelings about how this thing, being sober from this, is making me feel. And I think I was celibate for about 18 months, where I finally got to a place where I was like, wow, I feel clean. Like, I feel so clean that I can think my own thoughts. I can feel my own feelings. I know how I feel versus someone else's feeling. Y'all, was so empathic. I would just enmesh with people. Because I didn't know what was me. I didn't even really honestly know me or who I was. So I had to pull that shit apart. I had to painstakingly find out who I was, with also moving out things that were not me. During that process of being sober, I was able to find out who I was and not what the addiction made me, right? Because the coping, whether you're coping from something emotional, mental, physical, abuse, traumatic, whatever, is probably a combination of all of those things. You are coping with something, and because you're coping with it, you're also hiding away from yourself. You're saying, I don't want that. Everything that came before this right here, just go away. Just go away. And you know what else is back there? Your inner child. You know what else is back there? Your inner teen. You know what else was back there? You are over there. With all of that fucked up shit, you're over there too. And so you just leave yourself over there, and you are over here coping. And so as you're over here coping, you don't see yourself. And so you become somebody else. That's not you. It's never gonna be you, because it's not you, okay? And once you see that, you're able to pull yourself apart. You're able to see yourself for who you truly are, and you're able to release the need for the addiction. So then whenever you become triggered, the first step in the chain reaction no longer palates your taste. That's not even appetizing anymore. Like, you can see the unhealthy in it. You can see your body wanting something that you physically don't want, and you have the willpower to just say no. And at that point, you're at that 3 stage of healing. You're at that 3 stage of healing this idea, because this idea is saying, me, the soul, the consciousness, the awareness, I am in control now. And I know, ego, that you've been trying to help me. I know, subconscious, that you've been trying to protect me. But right now, I need to heal this. We can't keep running away from it, and we need to start looking at it. And at this point, when you get to this point, you'll be able to go into this healing process. Because this tower moment right here, where you see it all in your face and you can see it for what it is, that will allow you to take your ass right on over there and do the work, because nothing will satisfy it. Nothing will help you cope. Nothing will feel good, because all of this is just surface of what doesn't feel good. And then you really are able to change your life. So this, I hope that this concept makes sense. And as you go through level after level after level, you'll always have something that will stick to you. And eventually you'll have things that you've done to cope will become less and less and less. Because as you do the bulk of your shadow work, things that happened to you in childhood, now at each level, that bulk becomes less and less and less and less. And then it just comes into maintenance. Because what happened to you in that past cycle, in this last level, what happened? How did that touch you? How did that trigger you? How did that traumatize you? And then that is all you're working with at the top of that next level, instead of every fucking thing in the world that's happened to you in your life. And you're carrying that baggage every single day, creating resistance every single day for that next level. It's gone. And now you only have that little bit to do. So that's essentially what it's like to clean your feet, how much lighter you're going to be physically, spiritually, emotionally, and just everything, honestly. And I will tell you guys, the first time that I ever cleaned my feet, I was 25. I was 25. My daughter was 2. So you can start anywhere. It's never too late, and it's never too early. Get the habit, learn it, do it, and feel free. So you can get your ass up and create the life you want. And no matter if you gotta struggle through it or whatever, once you have gotten through the bulk of that work, life becomes exponentially easier, and your sight and your perspective for life and creating your life becomes exponentially clearer. And it will help you move forward. I hope that this video was illuminating to you. And I can't wait for next week. We're going to start to get into the bulk of our lessons now from this point forward. So please make sure that you have something to take your notes with, and make sure that you're keeping up with your notes so that you can follow up on the exercises. Going forward, I will have a way for you to download the worksheets that go with each lesson that have worksheets. The lessons that have worksheets will be in the description below. And I hope that this will allow you to grow as a person and to grow deeply within yourself. I love you, I care about you, and I'm grateful that you're even listening to this video, that you've made it this far, and that you're willing to take this concept and apply it to your life. Because this idea, this concept, this truth will allow you to shift everything in your life. And as we learn to apply it through these next modules and lessons in this course, you're going to understand how to map your life. You're going to understand how to take yourself from the low to the high and how to maintain an equilibrium where you'll never dip so low again. And that is great, because at that point, each time that you use this, you can create a new equilibrium every time that you level up, where your dips are so much less than they were before. Okay? So I love you so much. I hope that this video has helped you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.